Don in London, hello. October the 18th. Yes, October the 18th. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. And my addictive substance was alcohol, and my behaviour, behaviour was equally addictive around people, places and things. So, alcoholic, dependent, then addicted to a substance. And the behaviour that went with it, trying to be perfect, in the right place, with the right people, having the right things, doing the right things, always trying to make life work so it was happy and, funnily enough, joyous and free. But somewhere along the line, I suspect it was from the first drink I took, I recognised the power of alcohol. It had the power to fix my feelings, the power to overcome fears, the power to generate fear in the end. So a strange friend for many years, making anything and everything possible, a social activity, drinking, mad parties, just gentle parties, being with one person and not fearful, or being with a person and then becoming fearful that maybe I didn't love them or they didn't love me. Never really sorting out what it was to love a person without conditions, or unconditionally just get on with life and see what might happen. It was always contingent on trying to make it good. But life ain't like that. Some bits are good, some bits are bad, some bits are indifferent. So all shades of life, colours, black and white, you name it, life is just the way it is. And some things we just can't avoid, like grief and hurt, and also finding harmony, peace and serenity. All these things are possible in one day. So guess what? I found myself in a fellowship which talks about living one day at a time. And how did I get there to this fellowship, which is called AA, Alcoholics Anonymous? Well, not of my own volition. It took an awful lot of time realising that alcohol and that way of life was starting to kill me and causing self-harm, making me utterly depressed and suicidal in one moment, and then the next moment denying everything and saying I'm happy, but not really getting to the truth of what was going on, that I just didn't know how to cope with reality in the end. So alcohol took me to a place of isolation on a park bench, not wishing to get in touch with family, not wishing for anyone to know who I was, and just hoping that life would just end sometime soon, please, whatever's going on, just not to wake up and have to face this awful 24/7 drinking. And many get to the same place, but many don't get quite as bad, which is great news. They see the problem early and do something about it. So this fellowship of AA is full of people who learn how to keep sober one day at a time. The great news is, with Alcoholics Anonymous, no one speaks for it, not even me. All I know is what I see is what I get in meetings of the fellowship and people who are connected with it. What I see is what I get, the attraction of a good sober life, or a sober life working even when it's horrible. So that's great news. Nobody represents another person in the fellowship, never ever. So it's just a like-minded society of people who get on together to find out how to keep sober. And I share on this video what works for me and some of the readings from the fellowship, simply because if you don't know what's going on, or you can't get access to a meeting, at least there is something out there to share and listen to, as I listen to others who are out there on the internet as well. So the amazing thing with social networks is we are more in touch with people in fellowship and trying to be sober. How can that be bad? Only if we start to represent each other or tell each other what to do, which is the very opposite of what the fellowship is all about. So I'm very pleased that we have modern communications which help us share as we can, where we will. And everyone has a different way of sharing and offering support and help. We are unique, authentic humans on a unique, authentic path. So there is no common outlook except one, the similarity of staying sober. And that's how it works for me. But we do encounter problems with any fellowship, any society we may join, where there seem to be factions, groups and ideologies springing up which we just don't recognise as fellowship. Best avoid those types of meetings, and best avoid vexatious people who may be trying to tell us what to do, because they have found their way and their path, and they think it's the only one which is going to work, and they start to judge everybody else's path. So there are people like that in fellowship, but leave them to it. Leave them to whatever it is they do, and find out what it is right for you to do. So I share the AA preamble here, which is a bit more explicit than I've just been on this little card. And inside it, it has the 12 steps and 12 traditions, which are for individuals, and the fellowship, 12 steps for individuals to be open, honest and willing to live a sober life, or aspire to a sober life, and then 12 traditions which hold the fellowship together in unity, service and recovery, not with leaders or power bases, and nobody telling you what to do. Nobody tells you what to do, if you're fortunate, but you will find some who think they know it all, and what I've know now is I only know enough for today. So the AA preamble goes like this. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. And that's it, we share to help each other. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. So that's the only requirement, a desire to stop drinking. So there are no rules, laws or regulations to govern your behaviour. It's what you choose to do. And most of us choose to try and get on with each other. There are no dues or fees for AA membership, so if you haven't got any money, no problem. But we are supporting through our own contributions, so we don't have outside help or charity drives or anything like that. The fellowship and the groups and the meetings run on a prudent reserve which is provided by the fellowship members. But if you haven't got any money, don't worry about it. That's how it works. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. So the fellowship is not affiliated to anything, but every single person within it has some affiliation or idea about how they wish to live, their belief system, their politics or their work. So you're going to meet people from all walks of life who share incessantly about their background and what's working and what's not working. And in there are similarities which we can identify with, and still have many differences of opinion. So a desire to stop, no laws or regulations or rules, fellowship for sober, but you'll hear about all walks of life, and some people feel they need, share and impose theirs on you. But I try not to. I'm just about sober and what's working for me, so discard what you don't feel is appropriate. Or switch off, the ultimate sanction. And I won't know or feel it, but if I upset you, switch off. Yeah, quite right too. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So that is it. AA full of people with all sorts of ideas. But the primary purpose is to stay sober and help others to achieve sobriety, other alcoholics. And only you can say you're an alcoholic. And a couple of days ago somebody said, I'm a real alcoholic, like in the big book of AA. Well, the truth is, if you have a desire to stop drinking, you're very welcome. And whether you feel you're a particular type of alcoholic doesn't matter. It's what you feel is necessary in your life. And if sober is where you have a desire to stop and stay stopped, then you're probably going to meetings, hopefully, at some stage, now or in the future. And that's it. So, you will hear opinions about different types of alcoholic. different types of experiences people have, differences by the bucketful, but one similarity is to be sober today. And you take from fellowship what is working, and try not to judge or criticise one bit what other people are doing, as long as they're not doing harm to others. Then mostly we can be getting on with our own lives, learning a bit of wisdom and feeling better about what is going on. Doesn't mean it's going to be wonderful, because often life is difficult, but if we accept it's difficult, then sober becomes more manageable, maybe is a good word, on a daily basis. So that's where I get to with the AA preamble. Now I share a daily reflection, and from the literature of AA and from this book. Yeah. 12 months, 365 days, one step a month, the 12-step program. So October is all about step 10, which is about doing regular inventories of our life and how it's going, what's working, what's not working. Step 10, inventory, which is working out on a daily basis how life is going. And then within that, spot check inventories, which is if something's disturbing me in the moment of now, how am I feeling, why, and what can I do? It's an emotional, spiritual program of recovery. And often we underfeel life and overthink it. So if we're overthinking what's going on and we're trying to control what is going on, often we go backwards into our old attitudes and behaviour, which is try and control the situation or run for the hills, or try and control the situation, get frustrated and run to the nearest bar for another drink. So it's not easy being in recovery or living one day at a time, because we know how easy it is to look back, stumble and find ourselves with a drink in hand, hence the one-day program, and no one is better at it than anyone else. A successful day in recovery is sober. The rest of it can be wonderful or horrible as life offers. So there's no way out from life. It is difficult, but if we accept it's difficult, then we know where we're starting from. The AA reflection for today, an open mind. So October 18th, true humility and an open mind can lead us to faith. That comes from the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 33. So, an open mind, true humility and an open mind can lead us to faith. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. And it goes on to say, my alcoholic thinking led me to believe that I could control my drinking, but I couldn't. So again, it's my thinking, my alcoholic thinking, old attitudes, old behaviours. If it gets too difficult, find oblivion or just get smashed. When I came to AA, I realised that God was speaking to me through my group. Now, this is something which I really appreciate. God works through people, or speaks through people, people with wisdom. My mind was opened just enough to know what I needed, just enough that I needed His help. And His help comes in the form of wisdom from others, from the universe, providence, learning all the time. So humility is important. I know how insane I was. Sorry, I've skipped ahead. A real, honest acceptance of AA took more time, but with it came humility, the ability to learn. I know how insane I was, and I'm extremely grateful to have my sanity restored to me, and to be a sober alcoholic. The new sober me is a much better person than I ever could have been without AA. And for me that is absolutely true. I've just dropped one of my pages, although I might not use it. So sober, I have a better chance. And what I try and refresh my memory around always is that the fellowship is an emotional and spiritual program of well-being, one day at a time. 12 steps to keep me open, honest and willing to keep on learning life. And 12 traditions which help me be in fellowship, working in unity, service and recovery. So it's all about learning, and an open mind, open to exploring and understanding my emotions and what is spiritual. And everything points to this, the conclusions. Emotions are our feelings, and spiritual is the ability to cope with reality, where now is happening now. So if I know now what my feelings or emotions are, and I can cope with what's going on, I'm going to keep on learning, rather than go back to the old attitudes and behaviour of picking up a drink. And one of the phrases I hear often is stinking thinking in fellowship, which means going back to the old crap that we used to do. Everything's against me, so why shouldn't I take a drink? I can't enjoy life without a drink. But that's old thinking, stinking thinking. And thinking disrupts the emotional, spiritual well-being of people if we go backwards into old styles. So if we know what our feelings are today, we can cope with reality and then start thinking about it. We think differently. So we have underfeeling often about life. We have expectations of the horror that it used to be, or expectations it's going to be brighter, better and bigger than it was ever before. So there are a few things to work out. How am I feeling? Put enough effort into knowing that, so you know how your thinking is going to come out. So a lot of the time we just went back to old ways. It's horrible, nasty and awful, so it's going to be horrible, nasty and awful, rather than saying, if I feel good enough today, I can think better about the next set of steps I can take. So we underfeel life often when we're in the malady, and overthink the horror of life or the happiness of life, but nothing in between. So if we have an emotional spiritual program working on a daily basis, we have an evening out. We even out our feelings. They become day-sized rather than mountains from which we can go back into from the past. If you're walking through a mountain, it's hard work. If you're walking over a molehill, it's easier. We can walk round it. I hope that makes sense. But it became apparent last night, and this will come out in my thoughts for this morning. True humility and an open mind can lead us to faith, yes, but faith in faith. It doesn't necessarily follow it's a religious faith. On the other hand, closed, dishonest and unwilling will lead us to fear. And I am an emotional and spiritual learner in sober times, open to discovering my feelings and coping with the reality of now. Honest endeavour is in spot checking what is going on and willing to learn from what happens today. So the most important thing to remind myself is that life is as it is, and I'm part of it, but I don't control that much of it. But if I know what my feelings are and how to cope with now, then my thinking is going to be better than it would ever be with a drink inside me or full of resentments about the mountainous life I have. Which led me on to something which happened last night, listening to somebody else describe the grief process, which I should think a lot of people in fellowship and in life know about. And it's what we do when we have a loss going on. Loss of life around us, loss of family, loss of job, loss of house, loss of all our possessions because of what has happened. So we start off with the grief process, which is denial, I can't believe it's happening, through to anger about the situation, frustration about the situation, being depressed about the situation, and finally finding some acceptance of reality again. Grief is the epitome of every raw emotion felt when there is loss in our lives. We may need spin through the process 1,000 times for each loss we have. And sometimes we spin through 1,000 losses 1,000 times, and all at the same time today. Knowing the process is good, the process itself, as long as it takes, and it is as long as it takes for each event that we're dealing with. So not only do we have grief about one loss, we may have several losses going on at the same time around different issues and different people. And it takes what it takes to go through anger, frustration, denial, anger, frustration, depression and acceptance. And we can spin through all of this stuff. It's like an infinity of grief going on until we spin out of one thing and feel better about it, and we can cherish the memory of what we had rather than grieve it incessantly as a loss. And then we still have other losses we have to deal with. We can't deal with them all at one go, and the trouble is we store them up often. I'll deal with that later, I won't cry now, or I won't deal with that now because it's just too big, and it's added to a pile of other losses in the background. How difficult is that? It just gets bigger and bigger. And in the old days, what did I do? Drink myself into stupor and oblivion and hope the feelings would just go away in the morning. I'd be alright. But in the end it didn't, and I was just jam-packed full and broke down and couldn't cope anymore, which is why the park bench and isolation and waiting for death seemed preferable. A moment of clarity got me out of it. But sometimes the moment doesn't happen, and many people just expire in a very sad way, unable to cope anymore. So life is haphazard at best. So having got to sober, at least I have a chance to see how this day will turn out. I've got other years here as well. I'm not going to go through everything because I'm aware that time escapes me. So for last year, October the 18th, humility, always learning, acceptance of life on life's terms, our daily starting point where we accept everything just as it can be now. We know our situation, sometimes joyful and sometimes miserable. Then we have a realistic look. Can we make the best choices open to us with realism? Choose and make changes every day. Well, if we are open to change, it's normal and ordinary. Humility is fantastic. But if we have shame, guilt or anger building up around not knowing and feeling that we'll be shown up, we won't learn anything. So I try to accept life is difficult as it is, and learning, I need to keep learning because life keeps changing. And again, an open mind and always learning. Life is not an exam with pass or fail. Life is the adventure of the possible because of what we choose to do. Our emotional and spiritual well-being is contingent on how we see life real now. With what we know, we can visualize new possibilities. Open, honest and willing, we can strive today. And some of the words I use, visualize and strive, or making the best of, come from the poem Desiderata by Max Ehrmann, who was around on the stock exchanges in New York when Bill Wilson was a stockbroker, co-founder of the Fellowship. Funny how all these people were about at the same time. And those were vexatious times, and now we seem to have found ourselves back in the economy of vexation and vexatious times, and people not very honest, politicians telling lies constantly all day long to the point when they don't know what they're saying, and yet even when we point it out to them that they're lying, they keep on lying. In sobriety, the biggest gift for me is we can learn how to be open, honest and willing. Keep on working on our honesty. That's humility, rather than continually turning out the same old. We don't have very good role models around us, or maybe we do. Maybe we just didn't see them before. There are a lot of good role models for me in Fellowship. There are a lot of good role models in family. And there are a lot of good role models around generally in society, from whatever background they happen to be. I seem to bump into them in Fellowship and elsewhere. So wisdom comes from where it is. Sometimes from the man who is sweeping the street outside my house, who I happen to like very much, very nice chap, lots of wisdom from Poland, as well as other people who have high, lofty titles and live in interesting places. They too have their outlook, and it can be quite good. But I like the middle ground, where everybody's striving and finding life a bit difficult, because it just is. And that's where the real wisdom of life is, learning to cope with reality now. When it's going pear-shaped or wonderfully shaped, no matter what is going on, the serenity prayer, which is to God or simply in good conscience, because it's all wrapped up in the same outlook of faith, courage and confidence for me. Looking at what is possible and what is not possible, can do, can't do, wisdom to know the difference. That serenity prayer to God or in good conscience is this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference in the moment and just for today.